Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Ukrainian drone operators have repeatedly exposed vulnerabilities in NATO forces, most recently inflicting severe simulated losses on a U.S. armored brigade during combined resolve in Germany. But does this prove that Western armies are failing behind, or simply that modern warfare is evolving at an extraordinary speed? Joining us today on TVP World to assess what these exercises reveal about NATO's readiness is Krzysztof Jaworski, Director of International Affairs at the Institute for Security and International Development. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, looking at the latest combined resolve exercises, what does that actually reveal about the vulnerability of NATO's heavy armor forces of drones?
The recent drills and training between U.S. troops and also with the Ukrainian troops, which has real life battle combat experience. It revealed some trends which we observed during the several last years. The increasing importance of drones when it comes to the tactical level, when it comes to the countering of maneuver, countering of armored vehicles. And to start with, we should not, at the same time, overestimate the importance of such exercises and of data which comes from the battlefield in Ukraine, and at the same time not to underestimate the importance of it. What we have inside is a complex problem, and several commentators tend to make some kind of hype regarding the drones, and it's something we should be aware of. At the same time, some of experts tend to say that this drones doesn't matter at all. So I think we can go deeper into it in the next questions. But to start with, we should be careful regarding the strong conclusions regarding the drones based on only several exercises.
All right, like you mentioned, this exercise has already created a conversation that does seem quite polarizing, some overestimating perhaps the effectiveness of the drones, and also there's been talks about whether or not these heavy equipment from NATO is now obsolete. Now, you also mentioned that Ukrainians have more real-life combat experience. Do you think that factors a lot into this equation? Are the Ukrainian operators succeeding because of better technology, or mostly because of the fact that they have been dealing with real combat?
My answer is that it stems from this several factors, among them those factors you already mentioned. Mm-hmm. So the question of experience, real-life experience, the experience those soldiers gained in the situation in which their life were under real risk. It's something which couldn't be not taken into consideration. They are already training and using it in real combat for several years. So yes, of course, it's one very, very important factor. If we look at the broader picture, in Ukraine, the drones right now gained much more importance than it used to be, because they are operating at 3 different levels. We can talk about it also, but to focus on this basic level, tactical level, short-range drones, which helped to stop the advance of Russian army, which made it possible to stalemate, to stop the advance of Russian army. Also, these drones helps on the one hand to impose bigger losses on the Russian side. At the same time, it helps to preserve its own human resources. It's a very important aspect of using drones, that it allows to use less soldiers per square kilometer. So the density of soldiers used to stabilize the certain part of the front line, or rather of the zone of the contact, is less. But of course, it's working also on the other side. Russians are including drones in their tactical level operation as well. So they are able also to attack Ukrainian soldiers, and also they try partially to use these advantages. At the same time, the important factor here, because I mentioned that Russians has huge losses, is that Russians has this mixed tactics. They still use this old style Soviet tactics where soldiers are used to test the possibility of advancing, and they are generally used to attack and die.
Right, and also, like you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of nuances when it comes to these exercises, and it really takes some expert analysis to read into this. Now, what's the actual difference between a controlled environment such as this one and perhaps a real way that U.S. forces would conduct warfare, which would most likely also bring air power, long-range fire, and also less restricted electronic warfare?
The importance of airstrikes and artillery is still in place. That's something without doubt. So when we make these exercises as only a part of a possible war environment, of a possible battlefield, these outcomes could be different, because in this exercise there weren't airstrikes, there weren't this all advantage of technological and scale advantage of US Army. That's why, of course, we shouldn't read the outcome of this exercise like that Ukrainian army is better than US Army at all. They were better in this specific area, and it is a lesson. And all armies in NATO, they should carefully read these lessons, because if you are preparing for the battlefield, for the war of the previous generations, you are unable to win in the war when it changes. That's the one point. The other thing is that these drones, as I already said, they have this aspect of strengthening the possibilities when it comes to the effectiveness of a single soldier on the battlefield, because he is supported by his drones. He can use these drones. He has better awareness. He sees much more, not only what is possible for him to see by his eyes or other type of supporting him radars and other equipment, but also he has a very good possibility to see from the sky, from this reconnaissance drones. Also, he is much more able, much more capable of striking, because he is supported not only by his artillery, not only by airstrike, but he has also additional possibility of using drones on this short range. So those are several lessons we should take from these exercises.
Right. Now, you also mentioned earlier that it's important to not overstate nor understate the utility and the effectiveness of drones and how it's going to change modern warfare. Some of the headlines that we've been reading also talks about tanks and heavy armored vehicles becoming slowly more and more obsolete. Do you think that is a fair assessment, or are there any other factors that would still make them effective on a battlefield despite the fact that they can be now targeted by drones?
This is the question about the future of maneuver on the battlefield. We remember that, for example, during First World War, let me use this example, the maneuver was that the stalemate, the very stable front lines. However, the changes in technology, the changes in the tactics in the Second World War totally changed the battlefield. It was mainly the battlefield which based on maneuver. And the question is how to achieve such breakthrough, and whether is it possible right now. What we encounter right now is a very specific type of war. Specific because of the geography, specific because of the potential and situation of both sides. Ukrainian side had to find some way to fight asymmetrically, because they couldn't stand for a long time the war of attrition. They were in need of searching for the ways to somehow get advantage even if they have the lower potential, less people, smaller industrial base. And they put the bet on the drones. And as for now, they have significant successes in it. The question about the possibility of taking maneuver back to battlefield, we can also look at the recent attempt by Russian side. Russian side, several weeks ago, they tried to use armored vehicles. They tried to combine them with drones. They tried to combine them with electric warfare equipment. They failed. However, the fact that they failed right now, it doesn't mean that such tactics couldn't be reused. For example, when they are strengthened by drones. This question is very open, and it's endless race between both sides, the endless race of the sword and the shield.
All right, this is actually also very interesting as well. We're talking about this endless kind of competition with innovation. Now, looking at the traditional model of Western procurement system, though, which is built around expensive, long-life weapons, a lot of things that we're considering cutting-edge military equipment right now were actually designed way back in like 70s, 80s, or beyond. Can that compete with how fast technology iterates nowadays?
That's the elephant in the room, and thank you for bringing it to our conversation. So one thing, let me start from it, is the interest of the industry. Both of the old-style industry with heavy equipment and also the industry which is being born right now regarding the smaller, faster, more agile types of equipment like drones. So both of these sides will over-exaggerate the arguments in their favor because there are real money on the table. That's the one thing. The second thing is also regarding the economy of war. It's cost-effect relation. So when it comes, for example, to drones at this stage of technological use of drones, is well. Let me focus on just small area. Drones, long-range drones, which are used to maintain deep precision strikes. As for now, they are much cheaper than the interceptors, so which are used to shut them down. But the question is whether this will be the case in the future, because the interceptors, for example, drone interceptors, they are also being developed. So maybe in some moment these interceptors will be cheaper than the drones which are used to hit, to make this deep precision strikes. And then this calculation will again need to be changed, because maybe this tactics of overwhelming the enemy air defense will be no longer the winning tactic. So yes, that's right. We need to take into consideration the economics, both when it comes to the cost effect, and also to have in mind that when we discuss these things, there are always interests inside.
Right. Thank you so much for helping us break down and bring nuance to this very complex topic. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.